The vast space around the abandoned station was dark and silent, filled with drifting debris and faint glows from distant stars. The human mechanic had been assigned to inspect the old forgotten ships scattered across this part of the galaxy. It was a lonely job, but they were used to being alone. Space was quiet, and out here no one rushed you or watched over your shoulder. It was just you, the machines, and the hum of old engines. As they floated along the long metallic corridors of a derelict alien vessel, their footsteps echoed softly. The ship was old, rusted in places and covered with layers of cosmic dust. Some panels flickered with faint light while others hung loose, threatening to fall. It smelled of metal, oil, and something else, a strange organic scent that they couldn't immediately identify. That smell was faint, almost drowned by the metallic tang, but it lingered in the air, making the mechanic pause. "Something's in here," they muttered under their breath, tightening the straps of their tool belt. They weren't expecting anyone or anything, but the instinct to check every corner had saved their life more than once before. They followed the scent down a narrow side corridor. The metal walls were warped, and the floor was littered with broken alien devices and cables snaking like lifeless snakes. Every step they took made the debris shift under their boots, creating small echoes in the quiet ship. Then they heard it, a tiny faint sound, almost like a whisper, a soft, pitiful cry. The mechanic froze, listening. The sound came again, slightly louder this time, almost like someone or something was in pain. It was strange. They had worked on many abandoned ships, but they had never heard anything alive out here. Not on this scale, not in this emptiness. Their curiosity pushed them forward, heart beating faster with each cautious step. Finally, they reached a small chamber tucked away behind a rusted door that had partially fallen off its hinges. The air inside was colder, thicker, carrying that strange organic smell. And there it was, a tiny albino baby dragon. Its skin was pale, almost glowing under the dim light, but it was covered in millions of barnacles. The crusty, spiky growths clung to its body, wings, and even its delicate face. Each barnacle seemed to sap its energy, making it shiver weakly. The dragon looked fragile, too small to survive the harsh galaxy alone. Its eyes were wide, round, and strangely intelligent, filled with fear and confusion. When it saw the mechanic, it tried to move, but its tiny limbs trembled under the weight of the barnacles. It let out a small, pitiful squeak, and the mechanic's chest tightened. They had never seen anything like this. Dragons, as they had read in ancient galactic texts, were rare and often dangerous creatures. But this was not dangerous. This was something abandoned, helpless, and suffering. It made the mechanic take a step closer, despite the instinct that whispered to be careful. There was something in the dragon's eyes, a silent plea that stirred a feeling they couldn't ignore. Gently they crouched down, careful not to startle the tiny creature. "Hey there. It's okay," they said softly, their voice echoing lightly in the chamber. The dragon flinched but did not run. Instead, it watched, head tilted slightly as if trying to understand what this human was. The mechanic scanned the room quickly. There was no sign of the original caretakers, no one to return to, and no help coming. The ship was abandoned, drifting silently in the void of space. The tiny dragon was completely alone, left to face the galaxy with nothing but itself. The thought made the mechanic's stomach tighten. They couldn't just leave it here. Carefully, they reached out a hand. The dragon flinched again, but there was no aggression in its movement. Slowly, the mechanic touched one of the barnacle-covered limbs. The texture was rough and sharp, and the dragon hissed softly but did not resist. The mechanic could feel the dragon's weak pulse under their fingers, a tiny, fragile heartbeat fighting to survive. "I've got you," they whispered, determination building in their chest. "I'm not letting you die here." The dragon's small body trembled as they lifted it carefully. Every motion had to be precise. One wrong move could tear the skin or cause pain. The mechanic adjusted their hold, cradling it close. It made soft, frightened noises, but didn't struggle. There was a trust in its surrender, a silent acknowledgement that the human might be the only chance it had. As they made their way back to the corridor, carrying the tiny dragon, the mechanic's mind raced. How had the creature ended up like this? Why would the galactic aliens abandon such a rare, delicate being? They had no answers yet, but there was no time to dwell on questions. Survival came first. Reaching their small shuttle, they prepared a secure compartment for the dragon. The ship's interior was cramped, but the mechanic made space, lining the floor with soft blankets they had brought for long missions. They set the dragon down gently, It curled up, still weak, but it looked at them with wide, cautious eyes as if trying to understand this strange human world. The mechanic knelt beside it. "You're safe now," they said again. "I'll take care of you. I promise." They could feel a strange warmth in their chest. In all their years of repairing ships and surviving the cold emptiness of space, they had never felt this kind of connection with another living being. For hours, they simply stayed there, watching the dragon breathe. Each tiny movement, each soft squeak reminded them of how fragile life could be, even in the endless void of the galaxy. And yet there was something strong in this little creature, a spark of resilience hidden under the layers of barnacles. The mechanic decided that first thing tomorrow they would start removing the barnacles. It would be dangerous. It would take patience and care. But it had to be done. The dragon could not survive long in this state. And somehow the mechanic knew that this small, abandoned creature would change their life in ways they could not yet imagine. As the shuttle hummed softly in the dark space, the human and the tiny albino dragon rested side by side. One was a guardian, determined to save a life. The other, fragile and frightened, had found hope where none seemed to exist. In the vast, lonely galaxy, their story was just beginning, and neither of them yet knew how deep the bond would grow. The stars outside glimmered silently, indifferent to the struggles of life within the shuttle. But inside, warmth and care filled the cold metal space. One small dragon, abandoned by its own kind, and one human, determined to protect it, had found each other. And in that quiet, fragile connection, the first chapter of their journey together had begun. The mechanic knew it would not be easy. The galaxy was full of dangers, and they had no idea what challenges awaited them. But for now, the dragon was alive, and that was enough. They sat in silence, speaking softly, letting the creature know it was not alone. For the first time in its short life, the albino baby dragon felt a sense of safety, a promise that someone would fight for it. Tomorrow would bring hard work, challenges, and perhaps pain. But tonight, in the quiet hum of the shuttle drifting through space, there was hope. A fragile, tiny hope, but hope nonetheless. And as the mechanic finally leaned back, exhaustion settling in, they glanced at the dragon one last time. Its small eyes, reflecting the faint light of distant stars, seemed to say thank you in the only way it could. And in that moment, the human understood. This abandoned little creature was not just something to save. It was a companion, a living being that had chosen them as much as they had chosen it. And whatever the galaxy had in store, they would face it together. The next morning, the mechanic woke up before the shuttle's systems fully powered on. The albino baby dragon was still curled up in the soft blankets, breathing shallowly, and its pale skin looked almost translucent in the dim light. The mechanic's first thought was how fragile the little creature still was. Despite being tiny, it carried the weight of neglect and abandonment on its small body. Millions of barnacles clung to its scales, and each one had caused pain and made it weak. Today, the mechanic decided, they would begin the first step toward healing. The workshop section of the shuttle was cramped, but it had enough tools for basic repairs. The mechanic set up a small, clean area and laid out everything carefully. They had sterilizing equipment, soft brushes, and gentle cutting tools. Every instrument was chosen with care because even the slightest mistake could harm the dragon. As they worked, they kept one eye on the dragon, watching its every twitch and sound. The dragon's small ears flicked at every noise, and it occasionally flinched, remembering the pain from before. "Easy, easy now," the mechanic murmured, speaking slowly, trying to calm it. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon made a soft hiss, but it didn't try to escape. Somehow it seemed to sense that the human was not like the ones who had abandoned it. They had never been gentle before. Most of the world had ignored its suffering, or worse, had caused it. But this human was different. This human cared. The first barnacle was the hardest to remove. It had grown deep into the dragon's scales, and the little creature tensed with pain. The mechanic held it carefully, speaking in soft, encouraging tones, and worked slowly. Inch by inch, the barnacle came loose. The dragon's claws dug lightly into the blankets, but it did not lash out. When the first one finally fell away, the dragon made a small sound. Not a hiss, not a squeak, but something almost like a sigh. The mechanic smiled softly. "See, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Removing the barnacles was going to take time. Millions of them covered the dragon's small body, and each one had to be handled carefully. But as the day went on, something remarkable happened. The dragon began to trust the human more. Every time a barnacle was removed, it seemed to relax slightly, almost as if it understood that this human meant no harm. Its pale eyes followed every motion, and tiny gestures, like a flick of a tail or a small twitch of the wing, showed growing comfort. By midday, a few barnacles had been removed from the dragon's back and legs. Its scales underneath were delicate and shiny, revealing faint pinkish tones beneath the white. The mechanic paused for a moment to admire the little creature. Even in its fragile state, the dragon's natural elegance was visible. There was strength hidden beneath its suffering, a resilience that had survived the cruelty of abandonment and neglect. "Hold still. Just a little longer," the mechanic whispered. "We're making progress." Feeding the dragon was the next challenge. Its tiny body was weak from hunger and dehydration. The mechanic prepared a mixture of nutrients from supplies they had scavenged from the abandoned station. Using a small syringe, they gently fed the dragon, careful not to overwhelm it. The dragon hesitated at first, unsure, but the human's gentle voice reassured it. Slowly, it began to drink, its small tongue tasting the liquid with curiosity. After a few hours, the dragon had consumed enough to gain some energy. Its movements became slightly stronger and its breathing steadied. The mechanic watched, feeling a sense of relief wash over them. They knew the process was far from over, but this was the first victory. The dragon had survived the night and it had begun to recover, even if only a little. As the day passed, the mechanic noticed other things. The dragon had intelligence in its gaze. It watched the human closely, almost learning from them. It mimicked small gestures like moving its head when the mechanic moved theirs or flaring tiny wings when it became excited. It was clear that this dragon was not just a helpless creature. It had awareness, curiosity, and a natural instinct that was slowly emerging as it gained strength. By evening, a routine had formed. The mechanic would remove barnacles, feed the dragon, and then let it rest. Each interaction strengthened the bond between them. The dragon began to seek the human's presence, nudging their hands gently or curling up beside them for warmth. It had been abandoned by its own kind, but in this small isolated shuttle, it had found someone who cared. The mechanic couldn't help but feel a growing sense of responsibility. Out in the galaxy, life was harsh and many creatures were left to fend for themselves. But this dragon was different. It had survived against impossible odds, and now it had someone fighting for it. They knew that the bond they were forming would shape both of their lives in ways they could not yet imagine. Night came, and the shuttle drifted silently through the stars. The mechanic stayed by the dragon, watching it sleep. Its small chest rose and fell steadily, a sign that it was finally beginning to recover. They thought about how this tiny creature, once abandoned and left to die, had found hope through their care, and in that quiet moment they realized that the dragon was changing them too. For the first time in a long time, they felt a deep sense of purpose. Their life in space had been about fixing machines, surviving missions, and moving on. But now there was something more. There was a life that depended on them, a fragile, abandoned soul that needed care, patience, and trust, and they were ready to give it everything they had. The next morning, they would continue the work. More barnacles would come off and more healing would begin. But tonight, there was peace. The dragon rested beside them, safe for the first time in its life, and the human felt a bond forming that neither time nor distance could break. As the shuttle glided silently through the endless darkness of space, both the mechanic and the albino baby dragon slept, connected by a shared understanding. One was determined to save, and the other, learning slowly, was beginning to trust. Together they had taken the first step toward survival, toward healing, and toward a journey neither of them could have imagined alone. The galaxy outside remained vast and indifferent, but inside the shuttle there was warmth, safety, and the first spark of friendship. And in that small, fragile bond, a story of hope had begun, one that would grow stronger with each passing day. Tomorrow, the work would be harder. But for now, the mechanic allowed themselves a small smile. They had found a purpose greater than any repair job, greater than any mission. They were not alone, and neither was the little dragon. And somehow that made the endless void of space feel a little less empty. The days following the first removal of the barnacles passed slowly but steadily. The mechanic worked carefully with the albino baby dragon, who was gradually regaining strength. Each morning, the dragon greeted them with tiny, eager movements, stretching its small wings or tilting its head curiously. The mechanic noticed that the dragon's eyes, once full of fear, now held a spark of curiosity and intelligence. It was beginning to understand that this human was not only a protector, but also a friend. The shuttle, though small and cramped, became a kind of home for the two of them. The mechanic organized a small corner for the dragon, lining it with soft blankets and salvaged materials to create a comfortable resting space. Tools and equipment were carefully arranged so the dragon could watch without getting hurt. It fascinated the mechanic to see the dragon observe them so closely, following every movement with keen attention. Even simple actions like tightening a bolt or checking a panel seemed to interest the little creature. One afternoon, as the mechanic worked on a small repair, the dragon tried to mimic their movements. It extended its tiny limbs and experimented with a small tool, trying to push it along like the human did. The mechanic chuckled softly. "Careful. That's not a toy," they said gently. But instead of hissing or moving away, the dragon seemed to study the human's hands and then try again. It was a small, clumsy attempt, but it was the first time the mechanic realized how smart the creature really was. The dragon began showing other signs of intelligence. It would bring small objects to the mechanic, as if offering help. Sometimes it nudged pieces of equipment into position or tapped lightly on panels the human was fixing. It was clear that the dragon was not just a helpless animal, it was learning, thinking, and reacting. The mechanic's respect for the creature grew with each passing day. This was not just a baby dragon in need of care. It was a being with potential, capable of understanding and even assisting. Feeding times became an interesting ritual. The dragon no longer hesitated to eat. It learned to accept the syringe gently and even began to show excitement when it smelled the food being prepared. Its wings twitched in anticipation, and it made soft, happy sounds that were unlike anything the mechanic had heard before. There was a joy in those moments, a sense that the dragon was beginning to thrive. The mechanic smiled often during these times, realizing how much a simple act of care could build trust and connection. As the barnacle removal progressed, the dragon's movements became stronger and more coordinated. It could stand on shaky legs for longer periods, and it began testing its small wings. The mechanic would encourage these exercises, supporting the dragon as it flapped and balanced. The dragon's body, once fragile and weighed down by neglect, was gradually becoming more agile. Each new movement was a small victory, and the bond between them deepened with every success. The dragon also started to show affection in small, subtle ways. It would curl around the mechanic's arm while they worked, nuzzle their hand, or rest its head on their shoulder. These gestures were gentle but deliberate, and the mechanic felt a profound sense of companionship. In the quiet of the shuttle, with the stars outside reflecting faintly on the metal walls, the two of them shared a unique connection. It was a partnership built on trust, care, and mutual dependence. The mechanic began to notice that the dragon's intelligence extended beyond simple mimicry. It was learning to anticipate actions, understand patterns, and even respond to warnings. One day, while the mechanic was repairing a damaged panel, the dragon suddenly hissed and nudged their hand away. A loose cable had sparked, and the mechanic barely avoided a small electric shock. "Good eye," the mechanic whispered, amazed. The dragon seemed to understand danger and was willing to act to protect them. Their bond was growing stronger not only because of care but also because of communication. The dragon learned to recognize certain words and tones, responding differently depending on what the mechanic said. A soft, calm voice encouraged it, while a firmer tone was understood as a warning. They were developing a language of sorts, one based on gestures, sounds, and mutual understanding. The mechanic marveled at how quickly the dragon adapted, realizing that this tiny abandoned creature possessed a remarkable mind. Outside the routines of care and repair, the mechanic found moments to teach the dragon small skills. They would show it how to use simple tools or observe mechanisms on the shuttle. The dragon was an eager learner, fascinated by the workings of machinery. It would watch attentively, often trying to touch or manipulate objects with surprising dexterity. Each success, no matter how small, was met with soft sounds of excitement from the dragon and a quiet smile from the human. At night, the mechanic and the dragon would sit together in the small cabin area, resting after a long day. The dragon would curl up beside the human, sometimes draping a wing over their lap, and the mechanic would speak quietly to it about the stars outside or the mysteries of the galaxy. There was a sense of calm in these moments, a shared understanding that they were no longer alone. The human had found a companion and the dragon had found a protector. One evening, the mechanic realized just how far the dragon had come. Its body was stronger, its movements more confident, and its eyes brighter. It even attempted small flights within the shuttle, flapping its wings and balancing with growing skill. The mechanic encouraged it, letting it explore while always keeping a protective hand nearby. The dragon's joy was palpable, and the mechanic felt a sense of pride and wonder. This tiny, once abandoned creature was transforming before their eyes. The mechanic also began to reflect on the deeper meaning of their bond. In a galaxy where survival often required strength and cunning, they had found something rare: trust and friendship across species. The dragon, once left to die, had chosen to rely on them, and in return the human had chosen to protect it. It was a relationship built not on dominance or fear, but on care, patience, and mutual respect. Even as the shuttle drifted through the cold void of space, their small world was full of life and energy. The dragon would follow the mechanic everywhere, eager to learn, help, or simply be near them. It had started to develop a sense of play, nudging tools or flicking small objects with its tail. The mechanic would laugh softly at these antics, realizing that the dragon's personality was emerging fully. It was curious, intelligent, and even a little mischievous, adding warmth and companionship to the once lonely shuttle. The nights were filled with quiet moments of connection. The mechanic would sometimes tell stories about the galaxy, about places they had seen, and the dragon would listen, tilting its head or making soft sounds in response. It was as if it understood the tone, the emotion, and even the lessons hidden in the stories. The human felt a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that they were not only caring for the dragon's body, but also nurturing its mind and spirit. By the end of this period, the dragon was no longer the fragile, scared creature it had been. It was strong, curious, and remarkably perceptive. Its bond with the human had grown into something profound, something that neither of them could have expected when they first met in that abandoned ship. They were no longer just a mechanic and a dragon. They were partners, companions navigating the vast unknown together. The mechanic understood that the real journey was just beginning. The dragon's strength, intelligence, and emerging personality hinted at the adventures that awaited them. There would be challenges, dangers, and moments of uncertainty, but the bond they had formed would carry them through. The dragon had become more than a responsibility. It had become a true friend, one who would fight and survive alongside them. As they settled down for another night, the dragon resting against the human's side, a sense of peace filled the small shuttle. Outside, the galaxy remained vast and indifferent, but inside, warmth, trust, and companionship created a sanctuary. The human and the albino dragon had found each other, and together they were ready to face whatever came next. In the quiet hum of the shuttle's systems, the mechanic whispered softly, "We'll get through this. Together." The dragon responded with a soft, contented sound, closing its eyes in trust. It was a small sound, but it carried the weight of understanding, connection, and hope. They had survived abandonment, neglect, and loneliness, and now, side by side, they were beginning a journey neither could have imagined. The stars outside reflected faintly on the metal walls, distant and cold, but within the shuttle there was life, energy, and a promise of adventure. The dragon, once left to die, had found a protector, and the human had found a friend. And in that fragile, delicate bond, the first true spark of companionship had ignited, a spark that would carry them through challenges, dangers, and the vast unknown of the galaxy. Life aboard the shuttle had started to feel almost normal, in its own unusual way. The mechanic and the albino baby dragon had settled into a rhythm of care, repair work, and quiet companionship. The dragon was growing stronger by the day, and the bond between them had become deep and unshakable. The shuttle, once just a cold metallic space vessel, now felt alive with the presence of the small creature. Every corner echoed with soft sounds of life, the flap of wings, the shuffle of tiny claws, and the occasional soft squeak of curiosity. But the galaxy beyond was not always gentle. Despite the comfort and routine they had found, danger lurked. The abandoned ship where the dragon had been found had not gone unnoticed. Other beings, aliens from nearby sectors, had learned about the rare albino dragon. Some wanted it as a weapon, others as a trophy, and a few only for study. Its rarity made it valuable, and in the galaxy, value often meant danger. The first warning came quietly. One day, as the mechanic worked on repairing a minor hull breach in the shuttle, the dragon suddenly froze, its head lifted, ears twitching, eyes wide and alert. The mechanic followed its gaze to the viewport. In the distance, a dark silhouette of a ship appeared, moving quickly toward them. It was not an abandoned craft. It was sleek, fast, and clearly designed for pursuit. The mechanic's heart sank. Someone was coming for the dragon. The dragon's body stiffened, low growls vibrating softly from its throat. It was the first time the human had heard such a sound. It was not fear. It was warning. The creature, that had been abandoned and fragile, was now alert, protective, and ready. The mechanic felt a mix of awe and concern. "Stay calm," they whispered, their voice steady despite the tension. "We can handle this." The pursuing ship closed the distance quickly, sending a warning signal through the shuttle's sensors. The mechanic activated shields and prepared basic defensive systems. The dragon's eyes followed every movement, its tail flicking with agitation. There was no hesitation in its stance. It was ready to defend its human companion. The mechanic had seen bravery in humans, but this tiny dragon was showing a courage that was remarkable, almost instinctive. As the aliens arrived at the shuttle, they attempted communication, demanding the dragon be handed over. Their voices were harsh and commanding, filled with the assumption that fear would force compliance. The mechanic, however, stood firm. "No," they said simply. "This creature is under my protection. You will not take it." The aliens did not expect resistance, and their initial attempts to board the shuttle were met with surprising defiance. The dragon, small but fierce, leapt into action. Its wings flared, and it let out a loud, piercing cry that echoed through the shuttle and beyond. The sound was startling and intimidating, more powerful than anyone would have guessed from such a small creature. Sparks of energy flickered from its body, an alien defensive mechanism the mechanic had yet to fully understand. The pursuing aliens hesitated, unsure of how to respond. The mechanic acted quickly, using the shuttle's systems to create obstacles and slow down any intruders. But it was the dragon's actions that truly made the difference. It moved with agility and precision, blocking doors, hissing fiercely, and using its small size to its advantage. Every time an alien tried to get close, the dragon reacted with speed and intelligence. The human watched, amazed, as the creature they had rescued from helplessness now protected them with skill and determination. It was a tense standoff. The aliens tried various approaches, sending smaller drones and probes to test the shuttle's defenses. Each time the dragon responded, flaring wings, snapping claws, and using bursts of energy that knocked drones away. The mechanic could barely believe what they were seeing. This was not just instinct. The dragon was thinking, strategizing, and protecting its human in ways that even seasoned pilots might not have managed. The situation grew more dangerous as the pursuing ship tried to force the shuttle into a narrow asteroid field. The mechanic had to maneuver carefully, navigating through jagged rocks while keeping the dragon safe. The dragon remained alert, wings spread, tail flicking for balance, and occasionally leaping to knock small debris away. It was a team effort, unspoken yet perfectly synchronized. The human provided the skill to navigate, and the dragon provided the courage and defense. Together, they became more than the sum of their parts. Hours passed in tense vigilance. The Pursuing aliens frustrated by the dragon's unexpected ferocity and the shuttle's clever maneuvers, eventually retreated. They realized that capturing the dragon was far more difficult than they had anticipated. For the first time, the mechanic and the dragon had successfully defended themselves. Relief washed over the human, but it was tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of beings who would see the dragon as valuable, and threats would likely continue. In the quiet aftermath, the mechanic knelt beside the dragon, examining it for any injuries. There were a few scratches and small bruises from the defensive movements, but nothing serious. The dragon nuzzled the human, soft sounds of reassurance and trust filling the shuttle. "You were amazing," the mechanic said quietly. "I don't know what I would have done without you." The dragon responded with a soft, low hum, as if understanding the compliment. That night, the shuttle drifted silently through space. The stars outside glimmered faintly, distant and indifferent. But inside, warmth and companionship filled the confined space. The human and the dragon rested side by side, their bond strengthened, not just by care and survival, but by shared courage and mutual protection. The mechanic knew that their life together would not be easy, but they also knew that they were no longer alone. The dragon, once abandoned and helpless, had proven itself to be more than a companion. It was a protector, fierce and loyal. The human, once alone in the vast emptiness of space, had discovered a friend who could watch over them in ways they could not have imagined. Their bond had grown beyond simple survival. It had become a partnership built on trust, courage, and mutual understanding. Over the following days, the mechanic continued to reinforce the shuttle's defenses, preparing for any future threats. The dragon remained vigilant, often sitting perched on consoles or following closely as the human moved about the ship. Its intelligence was evident in the way it anticipated potential dangers, often alerting the mechanic before any problem became critical. Every day their teamwork grew stronger, their connection deeper, and their confidence in each other more unshakable. The mechanic began to realize something profound. The dragon was not just a creature to be protected. It was an equal partner. Its loyalty, intelligence, and courage were unmatched, and together they could face challenges that neither could have handled alone. They were no longer simply a human and a dragon. They were a team, bound by experience, care, and the unspoken, understanding that they would protect each other no matter what. Even in the vast, cold expanse of space, the shuttle now felt alive. Every corner was filled with the quiet energy of life, trust, and companionship. The dragon, once abandoned and left to die, had become a guardian. The human, once isolated and alone, had found a companion who could share the burdens and dangers of the galaxy. Together they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, whether from hostile aliens, treacherous debris fields, or the unknown mysteries of the universe. As the stars shimmered outside the shuttle's viewport, the mechanic whispered softly, "We're stronger together. No one can take that from us." The dragon responded with a soft, contented hum, its small body pressing close in a gesture of trust. The bond between them had grown through care, patience, and courage, and it was now unbreakable. The galaxy was full of dangers, but for the first time the mechanic did not feel afraid. They had a companion who understood them, protected them, and would stand by their side. And the albino baby dragon, once left to die beneath millions of barnacles, had found not only a savior, but also a partner, one who respected it, trusted it, and relied on it as much as it relied on them. In the quiet of the shuttle, drifting silently through the endless void, human and dragon rested together. Their journey was far from over, but one truth had become clear. They were no longer alone, and they were ready to face the galaxy together, stronger than either could have imagined alone. The challenges ahead might be many, but so was their courage, and now so was their unity. The morning light filtered through the shuttle's small viewport, scattering faint reflections across the metal walls. The human mechanic stirred, glancing over at the albino baby dragon who was already awake, perched on a soft blanket and stretching its tiny wings. The previous encounter with the hostile alien still lingered in the mechanic's mind. They knew the danger wasn't over. Other beings in the galaxy had learned about the dragon's rarity, and more might come. But today they had a plan, a chance to put distance between themselves and those who would try to capture the dragon. The shuttle hummed softly as the mechanic began preparations. Systems were checked, shields reinforced, and navigation plotted for a distant planet that promised safety and resources. Every tool and component aboard the small craft was inspected carefully. The dragon watched every move, its intelligent eyes tracking the human's actions, occasionally reaching out with a claw to touch an object or paw at a lever. The mechanic smiled, realizing the dragon had already learned a lot from observation. It wasn't just a passive passenger. It was becoming an active partner. Loading supplies and making adjustments took time, but the mechanic worked efficiently. The dragon occasionally helped in small ways, nudging loose tools back into place or flaring its wings to create a small gust that cleared dust from the control panels. Each gesture was small, but it reminded the human of how far the creature had come. Once so weak and helpless, it now contributed, using its intelligence and emerging skills to assist in their survival. Finally, the shuttle was ready. The mechanic turned to the dragon. "Ready for the next step?" they asked softly. The dragon tilted its head, eyes bright and attentive, then let out a small chirping sound, a sound that felt like agreement. It was their signal that together they were prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As they began the journey, the stars streaked past the viewport, silent and indifferent. The alien ship that had pursued them before was still out there somewhere, and the mechanic knew it. Their heart beat steadily as they monitored the sensors, ready to act at a moment's notice. But there was also a quiet thrill in the tension, an understanding that they were now partners not just in survival, but in strategy. The dragon, perched beside them, flared its wings slightly as if sensing the shared purpose. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A field of dense asteroid debris appeared on the sensors, stretching out for miles in every direction. Navigating it would require careful maneuvers, steady hands, and sharp reflexes. The mechanic adjusted the controls, but even with experience, the field was treacherous. Loose rocks could puncture the hull, damage engines, or trap them entirely. The human glanced at the dragon, which seemed to understand immediately. It flapped its wings, moving along the console and pointing, through gestures and nudges toward safer paths. Together, they moved through the asteroid field. The dragon's keen instincts allowed it to warn the mechanic of hidden obstacles and unstable paths, while the human skillfully maneuvered the shuttle. The cooperation was seamless, almost instinctive. The dragon dove low to push small debris aside, flaring bursts of energy to create temporary paths. Every successful maneuver reinforced their bond, and the human felt a sense of awe at the dragon's courage and intelligence. Hours passed with tense navigation. One particularly large asteroid suddenly shifted, threatening to collide with the shuttle. The mechanic braced for impact, but the dragon acted immediately. It shot forward, using a combination of strength and energy bursts to redirect the massive rock just enough to avoid damage. Sparks flew as the metal hull scraped against smaller debris, but the shuttle remained intact. The mechanic's heart raced, and they looked at the dragon in disbelief. You saved us," they whispered. The dragon let out a soft chirp, eyes gleaming with satisfaction, as if acknowledging the praise without arrogance. After escaping the asteroid field, the mechanic set a new course for a habitable planet in a distant system. It was uncharted but appeared stable on the scanners. The shuttle moved smoothly through space, and for a while there was a sense of calm. The dragon explored the shuttle, testing its wings and balance, occasionally resting on consoles to observe the stars. The human watched with quiet admiration, realizing how adaptable and intelligent the creature had become. It was no longer simply surviving, it was thriving. But the galaxy had one more test in store. As they approached the planet, another alien craft appeared on the sensors, moving with purpose toward them. The mechanic's pulse quickened. This time there would be no negotiation. The pursuing ship was heavily armed, clearly intending to capture the dragon at any cost. The shuttle's small weapon systems were limited, and even with the dragon's help, they would need strategy, speed, and courage to survive. The dragon sensed the incoming threat immediately. Its body tensed, wings flaring, and a low growl rumbled in its throat. The mechanic gave a steadying hand, calming it slightly. "We've done this before," they murmured. "We can do it again." The dragon let out a soft sound, acknowledging the plan, ready to act. The alien craft fired first, sending energy blasts that streaked across the void. The shuttle shuddered as shields absorbed the hits, but damage was minimal. The mechanic maneuvered skillfully, dodging further attacks while the dragon acted instinctively. It launched bursts of energy from its body, intercepting incoming fire and protecting the shuttle. The combination of human skill and dragon instinct created a force the pursuing ship had not anticipated. Every move, every decision was a partnership of survival. As the chase intensified, the mechanic realized that escape alone would not suffice. They needed to outsmart the attackers. Using the shuttle's sensors and the dragon's guidance, they led the alien craft into a field of dense asteroid debris. The pursuing ship, less agile than the small shuttle and unaware of the hidden dangers, struggled to follow. The dragon flared its wings, nudging smaller debris into the path of the alien craft, forcing it to slow and maneuver carefully. The mechanic exploited every opening, weaving through the chaos with precision. Finally, after hours of tense pursuit, the alien ship gave up. Unable to keep up and wary of potential damage, it retreated, leaving the shuttle and its unusual passenger in peace. The mechanic let out a long breath, feeling both relief and pride. The dragon perched nearby made soft sounds of contentment, and the human smiled, scratching behind its ears. "We did it. We really did it," they said softly. For the first time in a long while, there was true calm aboard the shuttle. They had survived the dangers not just because of skill or luck, but because of their partnership. The dragon's intelligence, courage, and protective instincts had been instrumental in their escape, and the human's guidance and care had ensured both of them survived. Together, they were unstoppable in ways neither could have managed alone. As the shuttle approached the uncharted planet, the mechanic prepared for landing. The planet's surface appeared stable, with wide plains, small mountains, and rivers that glimmered in the sunlight. It promised safety, resources, and a place to rest. The dragon's wings flared slightly as it observed the planet, sensing opportunity and safety. The human smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and hope. They had survived not just the journey, but the trials that the galaxy had thrown at them, and now a new chapter was beginning. Landing was smooth, and the shuttle touched down on soft, grassy terrain. The dragon leapt from the shuttle, wings fully extended, feeling solid ground beneath its feet for the first time in weeks. It let out a loud, joyful cry echoing across the plains. The mechanic followed, standing beside their companion, watching it explore its surroundings. For the first time, there was no immediate danger, no pursuing threats. Just the planet, the sky, and a sense of freedom. Together, they began to set up a small base on the planet. Supplies from the shuttle were arranged carefully, and the dragon helped in small ways, nudging items into place or exploring potential hazards. The human realized that this new world was not just a refuge, but also a place where they could truly bond and grow alongside the dragon. The trials of the galaxy were behind them, for now, and the future held possibilities that neither could have imagined. As the sun set on the horizon, casting golden light across the plains, the human sat beside the dragon. It curled its small body against their side, wings wrapped protectively around them. "We made it," the human whispered. "We're safe at last," the dragon responded with a soft hum, nuzzling their hand. In that quiet moment, the human understood fully. They were no longer alone, and the dragon had become far more than a companion. It was a friend, a guardian, and a partner in every sense. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but for the first time, both human and dragon felt a sense of home. The challenges they had faced had strengthened their bond, proving that together they could survive anything. The stars outside twinkled in the distance, indifferent yet beautiful, but inside the shuttle and now on this new planet, warmth, trust, and partnership filled the air. Their journey was far from over, but for now they had won a crucial battle, a victory of courage, intelligence, and unwavering companionship. The new planet stretched out in every direction, wild and untouched. Soft breezes rustled through tall grasses, and the sunlight painted the rocky hills with warm colors. For the human mechanic and the albino baby dragon, it was a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the dangers of space and build a new life together. After weeks of survival, escape, and close encounters, they could finally breathe, explore, and grow in a place that was theirs, at least for now. The mechanic stepped carefully across the soft ground, glancing at the dragon, who followed closely. Its small wings flicked occasionally, adjusting to the new atmosphere and gravity. The dragon's movements had become confident, almost playful, as it tested the ground with delicate leaps and stretches. Where it had once been timid, fragile, and cautious, it now carried itself with strength and curiosity. The human smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride in the creature they had nurtured, protected, and trained. They began exploring the area around the shuttle, searching for a suitable place to set up a small, safe camp. The dragon ran ahead at times, sniffing the air, examining rocks, and investigating potential hazards. It occasionally returned to the human, nudging them toward places of interest with soft chirps or small gestures. It was clear that this creature, once helpless and abandoned, now had a mind of its own, full of intelligence and initiative. The human realized that the bond between them was no longer just one of care. It had evolved into partnership and friendship. As they moved deeper into the hills, they discovered a small stream with clear water. The mechanic knelt to drink, and the dragon bent its neck to lap at the water carefully. Watching the dragon drink, the human noticed how much it had changed. Its once pale, weak limbs were now strong, capable, and graceful. Even its eyes had lost the look of fear, replaced with sharp intelligence and a growing confidence in the world around it. This transformation was incredible to witness, and the human felt a surge of hope and determination for their shared future. Setting up a base was the next step. The mechanic used materials from the shuttle, arranging them carefully to create shelter, storage, and a small workspace. The dragon helped in small, instinctive ways, nudging heavier objects into place, using its small wings to push materials, or alerting the human to obstacles they might have missed. Every action was simple but effective, and the human couldn't help but marvel at how much the dragon had grown in both skill and confidence. The first night on the planet was quiet, with only the sounds of wind, distant wildlife, and the soft breathing of the dragon. The human and dragon sat together outside the shuttle, watching the twin moons rise in the sky. The dragon rested its head on the human's lap, wings curled protectively around them. "We made it," the human whispered. "We're safe finally." The dragon responded with a soft hum, the sound of trust and contentment. For the first time since its abandonment, it felt completely at peace. In the days that followed, the human and the dragon began to explore more of the planet. They discovered small groves of trees, rocky cliffs, and wide-open plains. The dragon's curiosity grew with every step. It learned to hunt small prey for practice, test its flight in open areas, and even interact with the planet's native creatures. The human observed closely, providing guidance and ensuring the dragon did not overextend itself. It was a delicate balance of freedom and care, but the bond between them made it natural and seamless. The dragon's protective instincts were now fully developed. It no longer hesitated to act when the human was in danger. One day, while exploring a shallow cave, a loose rock shifted, threatening to trap the human. In a swift motion, the dragon leapt forward, using its small but strong body to push the rock just enough to prevent it from falling. The human froze for a moment, then laughed softly. "You've become my guardian," they said. The dragon responded with a chirp, eyes bright with pride and understanding. Over time, the human noticed more subtle changes in the dragon's behavior. It began to anticipate needs, like nudging tools toward them during repairs, or alerting them when something in the environment had changed. Its intelligence was remarkable, and the human realized that this creature was capable of learning, reasoning, and even teaching itself. Each day, the dragon grew not just stronger in body, but sharper in mind, forming a unique bond that was mutual, equal, and unbreakable. Life on the planet became a routine filled with discovery, care, and learning. The human taught the dragon simple tasks, while the dragon taught the human lessons about patience, observation, and intuition. They became more than friends. They were partners united by shared experience, mutual respect, and trust. The dragon's loyalty was absolute, and the human's protection was unwavering. Together they had survived abandonment, danger, and the harsh realities of the galaxy, and now they thrived in a place of safety and freedom. The human often reflected on how unlikely this connection had been. A fragile, abandoned albino dragon had once been left to die beneath millions of barnacles, and now it was a capable, intelligent, and loyal companion. The human had saved it, but in truth the dragon had saved them too, providing purpose, companionship, and a sense of belonging that had been missing for so long. Their partnership had transformed both of them, giving them strength, courage, and hope. As the weeks turned into months, the dragon's strength and size continued to grow. It learned to fly for longer distances, hunt more effectively, and navigate the planet with confidence. The human adapted too, learning from the dragon's instincts, observing its behavior, and relying on its insights. Together they explored every corner of their new world, discovering hidden valleys, streams, and cliffs where the wind carried their voices across the landscape. It was a life filled with freedom, challenge, and growth. The bond between them was evident in every action. When the human worked on repairing the shuttle or constructing shelters, the dragon would stay nearby, alert and attentive, ready to defend or assist. When the dragon explored or hunted, the human provided guidance and protection, ensuring it remained safe. Every action, every gesture was part of a partnership built over months of survival, trust, and shared experience. One evening, as the sun set behind a range of distant mountains casting long shadows over the plains, the human and the dragon sat together on a rocky outcrop. The dragon's wings were folded gently, and its eyes reflected the golden light of the setting sun. "We've come a long way," the human said quietly. "From being alone and abandoned to this, together. I never thought we'd make it, but here we are." The dragon made a soft sound, resting its head against the human's shoulder, as if agreeing. The human realized that the dragon had become more than a companion. It was a teacher, a protector, and a friend. The dragon had shown courage, intelligence, and loyalty that no human could match. It had survived incredible hardship, yet its spirit remained unbroken, and the human in turn had provided care, trust, and guidance, allowing the dragon to grow into its full potential. Together they had created a new life, built not on fear or survival alone, but on respect, love, and understanding. Life on the planet was not always easy. There were storms, dangerous wildlife, and the occasional sign of other beings nearby. But the human and the dragon faced these challenges as a team. The dragon's instincts and strength, combined with the human's knowledge and skill, made them resilient. Every obstacle overcame together strengthened their bond, proving again and again that they could survive and thrive where others might fail. As the years passed, the albino dragon grew larger, stronger, and more majestic. Its wings spanned wide and its presence commanded respect. Yet despite its strength, it remained gentle with the human, always protective but never aggressive without reason. The human marveled at the transformation from the weak, abandoned creature they had found to the powerful, intelligent guardian it had become. And through it all, the bond between them remained unshakable, forged through trust, care, and countless shared experiences. The human often reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought them together. A fragile, abandoned dragon with millions of barnacles left to die had become their closest companion and protector. In return, the human's care and determination had given the dragon life, hope, and freedom. They had saved each other in ways neither could have predicted, and together, they had built a life filled with trust, love, and resilience. As they looked out across the plains, the dragon perched beside the human, wings folding gently, eyes bright and attentive. The human whispered, "We made it. Together we've survived everything, and we'll face whatever comes next as a team." The dragon responded with a soft, contented hum, nuzzling their hand in quiet affirmation. In that moment, there was no fear, no danger, and no abandonment, only companionship, loyalty, and the knowledge that they would face the galaxy together, forever. The stars began to twinkle as night fell over the planet. The human and the dragon rested together, the warmth of their bond keeping the cold at bay. They had faced neglect, danger, and the vast emptiness of space, yet they had found hope, courage, and family in each other. The future was unknown, but one thing was certain. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The dragon would protect the human would guide the dragon, and together they had created a life of strength, love, and unburry.